that first summer of 2020, all of a sudden, just a massive acceleration in our business. And that hasn't really stopped because I think it opened a lot of eyes. One of the things we learned was how unprepared advisors were for this. I think being in the advisory business at an RIA and always prioritizing building our list, treating that like our own real estate and nurturing that to generate business from it was so innate to me that I was shocked when I saw advisors who they'd come to us and say, okay, I can't do seminars anymore. I can't do wine tastings anymore. I've got to do some marketing online. And we'd say, great, where's your list? Oh man, I don't know. And pretty soon they're like going back through stacks of old seminar registration paper forms to try to extract email addresses and having their assistants call their clients and people in their database to get email addresses, and then having to pay a ton for advertising to get opt-ins when, yeah, that can work, but of course it's a much longer fuse. The trust isn't there. And so we learned how ill-equipped. And what I saw, the evolution was advisors went from awareness of the opportunity and the problem to truly building a engaged list of prospective clients a real priority. And that's been a painful learning experience for some.
This is the Business of Advice podcast, where we help good advisors become great business owners. Welcome back to another episode of the Business of Advice, and this is one that I have a feeling you're going to want to revisit a few times. I am joined today by Snappy Kraken CEO Robert Sofia. Robert is an expert on the leading edge of financial services marketing, a trusted partner of us here at Advisors Excel. We have a lot of our advisors working with them. He is the founder, chairman, and CEO of Snappy Kraken, which has won more awards than you can count. But it's worth pointing out that you're also a 5-time honoree in the Inc. 500, along with being recognized as a great place to work by Fortune magazine, which is not an easy feat, I know. So, Robert, welcome to the Business of Advice podcast.
Thank you, Cody. I'm really happy to be here. I love your podcast, and some of the guests that you've had, I really admire. So, frankly, I'm flattered and humbled to be here today.
Well, and as you know, a lot of the guests aren't necessarily specific to our industry, but you are very much so. So for all our advisors that listen, this is going to be a great episode. But I think for anyone who's an entrepreneur, what you're doing to support, business owners, small business owners, advisors, is pretty incredible. So excited to talk about some of that. But then also, I think, you and I have had some conversations. What you're doing to build a business and create a great culture there is, we're going to discuss that too. So excited for the conversation. But why don't we start here? I always like to start at the beginning. Walk everyone through your background, kind of how you got into this industry. But then I think more importantly, what was the driving force behind deciding to go out, start your own company, and what has now become a huge success?
Yeah, thank you. I got in this industry back in 2005, working at an RIA. So I was recruited out of the auto industry. I actually worked for Ford in marketing and was a VP of marketing at this RIA that we grew assets substantially, brought that firm from about 150 million to almost $1 billion in AUM. And it was all because of the partnership between marketing and great advisors, great advice. Yep. And that led to creating a marketing company, which I exited in 2016 to start Snappy Kraken because I wanted a technology marketing company. And really, for me, it just comes down to the intersection of what I'm passionate about, a problem that has to be solved, and something I can make money at. So when you reach that intersection, for me, I'm passionate about creativity and marketing. I know advisors struggle with that. The industry had a lot of bland, boring marketing that wasn't really effective, that advisors were getting robbed paying money for. So that's the problem I wanted to solve. And I knew that if we did it right, we could also make a lot of money. So those three things came together into the start of Snappy Kraken.
So I want to talk very specifically. You help advisors do a much better job in marketing, I would say, to their prospective clients, but also their existing clients. And one of the things, well, let's go back to maybe the start of COVID. We saw a lot of our advisors, I think those first couple months, everyone's like, what's this going to mean and how's this going to impact our business? And live events are no longer, we're not able to do those anymore. But what we actually ended up seeing is most of our advisors thrived through that period of time because they realized, and we'd been preaching for a while, the value of building your own list that you can market and communicate to. Did you see maybe not did you see, because I know you did, but then maybe what were some of the things that you learned? Did that accelerate the adoption of technology to really increase this, what I would call dripless marketing?
Yeah, it did. And we saw through that first summer of 2020, all of a sudden just a massive acceleration in our business. And that hasn't really stopped because I think it opened a lot of eyes. One of the things we learned was how unprepared advisors were for this. I think being in the advisory business at an RIA and always prioritizing building our list, treating that like our own real estate and nurturing that to generate business from it was so innate to me that I was shocked when I saw advisors who they'd come to us and say, okay, I can't do seminars anymore. I can't do wine tastings anymore. I've got to do some marketing online. And we'd say, great, where's your list? Oh man, I don't know. And pretty soon they're like going back through stacks of old seminar registration paper forms to try to extract email addresses and having their assistants call their clients and people in their database to get email addresses, and then having to pay a ton for advertising to get opt-ins when, yeah, that can work, but of course it's a much longer fuse. The trust isn't there. And so we learned how ill-equipped. And what I saw, the evolution was advisors went from awareness of the opportunity and the problem to truly building a engaged list of prospective clients a real priority. And that's been a painful learning experience for some, but for those who have done it, it's been tremendously helpful to the growth of their business.
Yeah, I would say, we talk specifically about advisors, but anyone who's a business owner listening to this, like if you're not building a list of people that you have and can communicate to directly, like just a massive, massive mistake. I say even in our own business over the last 18 years, when you look at the list of qualified advisors that we know would be good fits for our organization that we built, it's kind of the secret to our business. And this is a weird thing to say, but you probably see it also. We actually probably spend less on marketing today than we have at any time in our business because we've done such a good job of building and cultivating that list of people that we can communicate and market to directly, that we don't have to do a lot of mass broad marketing anymore. And so it's what I'm seeing with a lot of advisors. But let me, for maybe those who aren't doing this well, when you speak to an advisor who is maybe a great marketer, but using what I would say are more traditional methods in our industry, live events, seminars, referrals, and they're not leveraging technology, what are some ideas that you bring up to help them understand the power behind what technology can do, and maybe even specifically what Snappy Kraken is doing to help advisors?
Yeah, well, it's funny how you asked me what are some things we do to help them appreciate that, or what do we say to help them appreciate that? Because when I initially started this business, I was all in on the marketing speak. Let me tell you about your conversion ratios and your nurturing and advisors were not really understanding all of that. And I think we had a real connection with advisors when we finally adapted all of the marketing lingo to something truly relatable. And what I mean by that is advisors understand everything involved to take a person who's a stranger and ultimately turn them into a loyal client and even a friend, because they've done it for a very long time. You first have to meet someone. You have to make a good first impression. Then you have to exchange contact information. Then you have to follow up. And then you have to have a reason to actually start a more meaningful dialogue, a conversation, sit down, engage with them. Then you have to provide recommendations and advice. And then you ultimately turn them into a client. And then it doesn't stop because you have to build that relationship and grow it through consistent communication. Okay, all that's absolutely crystal clear. But now, if you just overlay all these, you could even say confusing ideas about marketing, and you just put it into that same framework, it starts to really make sense. So you say, okay, wait a second. In a traditional business, what do you have to do to meet someone? Oh, well, I go to mixers, I hold events, I hold seminars, I network. Okay, great. Online, how do you meet someone? I don't know. Okay, well, let's talk about all the ways you do that. You can do it with advertising. You can do it through content marketing. You can do it by going to forums and places where people who you are targeting are engaging. Okay, so we have to create all these ways to have an introduction. All right, now you meet someone. in the real world, you've got to make a great first impression. What do you do online? Well, you also have to make a great first impression. So what does that mean? How much effort are you putting into your website, your profiles, the use of video, your branding? How good do you look online? And then when people engage with you in that first impression, what channels of communication are you using that feel comfortable for them, that make them say, oh, this person gets me. They communicate in the same way as me. If you have people coming to your business because you've been visible, and now they want to communicate with you, for example, by text messaging. But, oh, wait, we don't text. Okay, well, hold on a second. That's their preferred method of communication. What is that first impression you've just created? Oh, they're behind. They're backwards. Now, I'm not going to carry this on for 30 minutes, Cody, but the point is everything you do online to be successful can be directly connected back to the same things you do in person to be successful. And if you start thinking about it that way, you'll put more effort into even the way you show up at a Zoom meeting. Just because it's on Zoom doesn't mean you don't want to give thought to your background and how you're dressed and your lighting. So all these things that you live and breathe in the bricks and mortar world, you can apply to the online world. And advisors seem to understand that, and it helps them to want to put that effort in.
When you think of some of the advisors that have been using Snappy Kraken really effectively, I know we have a lot using it really effectively that love it. Are there certain commonalities you see amongst those advisors who are being most effective with the platform?
Yeah, there are. I think there are a couple of big ones that come to mind. The first one, absolutely hands down, is consistency. Getting great results from marketing always takes longer than you expect. And I think we've gotten spoiled a little bit. I got spoiled going out and having a seminar a week and just having 30 fresh prospects who were ready to meet with me was, that spoils you. And then closing half of them. But online, it doesn't work that way. It's a longer fuse. It's more effort to build trust because they haven't necessarily shook your hand and looked you in the white of the eyes, and maybe you haven't bought them a meal. So there's an aspect of patience that's required. So patience and consistency, not giving up, keeping at it week in and week out. It has a compounding effect, but that takes time. And then the other big thing I would say is trust. And when I say trust, I mean trusting us. And the reason that's hard for advisors is because they're not usually comfortable with the level of, you could say, casual communication style. You could say creativity. We have to work pretty hard online to be attention grabbing, to be bold enough to get people interested, to evoke curiosity and not overwhelm them with all the research about how smart we are and the technical analysis, but raise enough questions that make them want to have a conversation. And advisors, a lot of times, they really want to go a different direction. They want it to be more conservative. They want it to be more traditional. They want it to be more complete. And we have to remind them, hold on, if it's too conservative, you won't get seen. If it's too traditional, people will get bored. By the way, they can Google that stuff. And if it's not casual and informal and raise a lot of questions, they're not going to want to talk to you. They're going to view you like a robot. Okay, so it's hard to get them over those hurdles, but the advisors who are succeeding, they trust us to be the marketers that we are, and they're consistent with it.
One thing you said that I've seen a lot with advisors is when they were making, and so I'll apply this to advisors that maybe are starting to use more digital tools that say, but any business owner, is that transition from, I think you said it well, if you do some sort of live event and you're with someone for an hour and you build some rapport and relationship, it's really easy to get them to take that next step to come in and sit down with you. And likely, good advisors convert pretty well from that. A lot of them started trying to take that same approach to, like, I'm going to run an ad on Facebook, hope they click in for some sort of free report, and then try and get them into our office, right away. And I think that's the one change that we've seen with advisors doing it really, really effective is, no, there's a lot longer nurture cycle that has to take place. So that idea of consistency and how you show up, I think, is a huge one that we've seen in the ones that are doing it really well, and maybe those that aren't, just because it is different than what they're used to. We talk a lot about what you all do is helping I would say, a lot with the marketing. And one of the things we always focus on is how do we help good advisors become great business owners? And some of that comes down to, as your business scales, how can you do things more effectively? How can you leverage technology better? Are there other examples of how you see advisors leveraging technology to scale their company quickly?
Yeah, I mean, other examples outside of marketing, I am candidly not as dialed into anymore.
Sure.
But one of the things that we are seeing that it is tangential to marketing is the integration of platforms, which has been a huge time saver for advisors. I mean, we have an integration with financial planning tools and CRMs, and it used to be when you wanted to do marketing, you would upload your list as a CSV file into some marketing tool, and now everything's connected to the CRM. It's two-way bidirectional syncing, and it's automatic. That saves a ton of time.
Yep.
Automatic reminders and notifications, in your systems that are going out to clients, the advisor, the assistants in a coordinated way, so the right person's getting the notification to follow up on the work. The integration of calendaring tools into marketing messages to help clients and prospects book more easily. I mean, these are all efficiencies that are related back to marketing, but when you have an advisor who has good quality assistants, whether they're virtual assistants or in-house, they've got their CRM and their planning software and their marketing automation software all tied together. They've got their notifications set up right. They got their calendar tools running. What ultimately happens is that they create a lot more scale for themselves, and they have the ability to serve a lot more clients effectively. One of the big things that I know is it's marketing related, but I can't help but go there, is the use of video at scale. In the old days, like if you want to do video, you might create a video and put it on your blog, or you might leave it on YouTube. But now, you can, and this is one of the things we help advisors do. You put the video on a special page with a contact form where people can ask questions about the video and engage with you. And then you have a coordinated campaign that automatically publishes it to different channels, and all the notifications and messages come back to you in a consistent way, or even text messaging at scale. You put a typical cell phone number on, your clients start texting you, you can't manage it. Well, with the right tools, those text messages can all come into your office number, into a dashboard where they can be seen and answered, and you can actually be having a text conversation with autoresponders or with even dozens of clients at once very seamlessly. All those things create scale. And so I think of it as when you're choosing technology, you need to think of it like being bionic. I've got my own abilities that are never replaceable. The things about me that have to always be front and center, the things I'm best at. But everything else that I can automate to make me bionic, to give me more scale, to give me more capacity, those are the things that I should be looking at and considering if I really want to grow.
And you guys have been great. I know working with us on a lot of those things, even throw out there archiving all of those things for compliance purposes, which is a huge part of this too. And I think it's where we're seeing advisors do make a lot of mistakes, right? When that's a big focus right now of the SEC when they're coming in and doing audits. So making sure that you have all the tools to archive that appropriately has been a big part of it. I want to talk, because you spend so much time on marketing, as you look out over, let's say the next 5 years, are there some things that you think are going to be big developments in our space? And then obviously you and I were talking a little bit before we even started recording, but right now I think in our space, I spend a lot of time on the marketing side of what we do too, but Chat GPT, some of the open AI stuff is the talk of all the marketers I know right now in this space. So AI tools I know are a big part of that. But anything that you see out there into the future that is going to be a game changer, or at least evolve how we're doing marketing?
Yeah, there are a couple of things that I think intersect and have tremendous potential, and we're already experimenting with these things a bit. And we're probably even behind on some of this because it's amazing how fast it's advancing.
Yeah.
But the intersection of data and AI is extremely promising. And so right now, if you look at the data warehousing that is available. There's a lot of great companies building repositories where all this data flows in. And so you've got, think about all the data even advisors have now, all the data in the financial planning software, all the data in the CRM. You combine that with data from big data sets, which has even more information about people's social profiles and activity and area where they live and interests. And what you end up with is a very robust set of information about an individual that can be used to fuel communication. So that's where the AI comes in. And if you haven't experimented with ChatGPT yet, obviously it's free, it's out there, it's incredible. You start prompting that software with information, and the degree of relevance and natural language programming that it has to create meaningful, personalized responses. I envision a day, Cody, where nobody gets a marketing communication that is not directly relevant to them. And relevance is the key to great marketing. So today we are relevant by what? Trying to build great lists, trying to create great content for people that fit those personas. But a persona is not an individual. A persona is a group. But when you get down to this individual level, if I got communications, if you got communications that spoke directly to where we live, what we're passionate about, how many kids we have, our beneficiaries, the age of our beneficiaries, the amount of our holdings, the types of our holdings, and everything is being done automatically with this artificial intelligence, I I see advisors just being able to almost have everything done for them except the FaceTime. Even the investment strategies can be shaped around that. And I think we're not far away from it. I really don't think we are. And I think the advisors who embrace that and start implementing those things in their business as much as they can are going to have a huge edge.
It really is pretty remarkable. I actually saw some of the emails back and forth with, I think, you and Matt. We're looking at some different vendors, and I know you all are. It's remarkable, at times maybe even scary, the amount of information that is known about you as an individual. But like you said, I think used in the right way, the personalization that we're going to be able to get, and more so, I think, just speak to and add value to what's important to people, which is a big part of what we're trying to do in this this industry too. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun to watch just how it evolves and changes. And as you said, it's fast, right? It's changing at a really quick speed. As you let me ask a different question. So many of the advisors that we serve are very focused on kind of people as they're transitioning into retirement. So right now that is primarily that baby boom generation, and a lot of them, 10,000 retiring every day, kind of in a peak of it right now. But in the next 5 to 10 years, we're really going to start to see our generation, Gen X, start to retire. Are there changes that you think advisors will have to make as they approach like the Gen X generation as they roll into retirement? And maybe asked another way, how much more important, if they're not embracing kind of financial technologies today, is that going to become?
Yeah. Well, the expectations of that generation for the experiences they have with businesses is way higher than the boomers. As digital natives, they really do expect consolidation of data. They go to an advisory relationship. They will not tolerate multiple logins. They're not going to want that. They're going to want everything easy. They're going to want the user experience to make sense. They're not going to be happy sitting down and wet signing a bunch of papers. In fact, they're probably not even going to be happy with the delays in the ACAP process. They're going to expect speed, efficiency. They're going to expect everything to be easy, native, app-based. And I think even the way we deliver service, there are some things about the boomer experience in a financial planning practice that they like, that Gen X will just think is bells and whistles and want to know how much it's costing them. And you could just go on and on. So yes, every generation has different expectations. They use different communication channels. I think about the rise of I mentioned it already once, but texting versus calling and emailing. I mean, we're already seeing, and if you look at the data, it's very clear. Gen X would prefer, 86% of them would prefer to text a business than they would to call them or email them. So that's just one small example. There are so many of them, and you've got to retool the experience for the people you're serving.
It's interesting, even thinking about myself. You said a few things in there. One, I hardly ever do phone calls anymore, right? Text is just so much easier, convenient. You're going, I can quickly respond to a text. But the second one is, like, I get annoyed when I have to sign stuff. Like, I have a banker right now. He's like, hey, I need you to sign some documents to open up an account. And I'm like, seriously? Like, you can't just email it to me and I'll DocuSign it real quick? And he's trying to set up a time to swing by and sign the paperwork. And it is. I'm like, maybe this isn't the right bank. It's just such a different part of how we're looking at it. So let me ask you one more marketing question, just because you spend so much time in it. What are some of the most common mistakes you still see made with marketing when it comes to the advisor?
The first one that comes to mind is not trying. And I think that comes from lack of confidence. It surprises me the amount of advisors who are still resistant to just hopping on their phone and recording their perspective in a video and posting it online, which is a great way to market. It's super organic. It's absolutely irreplaceable. It's your own thoughts. It's your own style. It's a powerful medium, and that's just one example. Advisors just they won't try because they feel like they're going to mess it up. They're too self-conscious, and that's a lot of people feel that way in lots of other businesses too. But that's a big mistake. Like getting out there, just doing it, giving it a shot. You'll get better at it over time. You'll learn a lot in the process. And then the other big one is just giving up too early. I mean, especially with digital, I see advisors, they know they need to do it. They decide they want to embrace it. They take the first step or two or three on this journey of 100 steps, and they give up because they don't get what they expected immediately. So lack of trying and giving up too early are the biggest sabotagers of success in almost any endeavor in life, but surely in marketing.
Yeah, that's a really good one. Okay, I want to shift a little bit, because not only are you a great marketer, but you have started, scaled, and built your own business. And so I want to talk more about that aspect of it as you've grown and developed as a leader, business owner. But I think one thing that both of us have in common, we both won multiple great places to work, which is not an easy feat to do. So let me ask you this question. What has been your approach to building the culture at Snappy Kraken, and what are some of the things that you think you're getting right?
Yeah, thank you. I have to say this briefly. When we went to your office, we were incredibly impressed with the culture that you've built there and the
Thank you.
people. And it's been at every interaction and the things you did for us as visitors. And you are a work at work culture. We are a remote culture. But if I had a work at work culture, I'll tell you, I'd want to do it like you guys do it. So
I appreciate that.
Congratulations for all you've accomplished.
They made you some good signs. I saw some of them. I was out of town that day, but yeah, there were some good signs there.
They did. One of them's still here in my office. um, for us, I can't overstate the fact that most of what makes our culture great is nothing you can write down or implement as a process. It absolutely just starts with authentically caring about people. And myself, my business partners, my founding executives, we care about people. We care about their well-being, emotionally, physically, mentally, their success. We want to see them grow. We want to see them do well. Even if they leave us, we want to see them go on to bigger and better things. We just care. We will not squeeze every drop of juice out of them and burn them out. And so we help them prioritize their life. Work is part of their life. It is not the only thing in their life. And just approaching everything through that lens has been, I think, the most important aspect of growing this business from 3 people that started it to over 100 today. And along with that, we didn't have these things on day one, but they became more important once we scaled the business to 20, 30 people.
Mm-hmm.
And have become even more critical as we scaled the business, above 100. It are clearly documented, promoted values. We have 7 core values. Everybody knows them. All of our awards at the company are given based on them. The Employee of the Month, Employees of the Year, all of our high fives and celebrations that we have include the core values. That's what people get celebrated for. And those values are values that shape our work and how we serve our clients. And that's huge. And the other big thing is vision. I read a book. I know you one of the standard questions is always, what books do you recommend? But one of the most transformative books for my business was Vivid Vision by Cameron Herold. And after writing that vision 3 years ago for the first time in 2019, rolling it out to all of my employees, it got the entire company aligned around what we're charging for, the most important things, and having alignment and striving for the same vision together. Chase the vision is one of our values, by the way. That has been unifying. So instead of people just sort of off in their own lane, competing for the spotlight or the priorities, everything is anchored around that vision. And I could go on about tactics. There's lots of tactics, but I think if you boil it all down, if you care about people, you've got a clear vision, and you promote the right values, you'll have a great culture. It'll be a place where people want to come work.
That's great. And you've seen it kind of lived out. And I think that the growth and success is a part of that. And just shameless plug, I had Cameron on the podcast. He's been a huge resource for us over the years. So go back and listen to that if you haven't heard that one, for everyone who is listening. Let me ask you another culture question. And you said it at the beginning of that. We are a work from work culture. We started that way, went remote for a while. It would take way too long for me to explain why we want to remain a work from work culture. You started more as a remote work environment. As people are making that transition, if people have decided like, hey, we are going to go more remote in this flexibility, what are maybe some things they need to be aware of? Because that is a big transition, but you've been doing it for a while. Are there things that you've done well in this remote work environment that you think are important?
Yeah, big time. And it's not all the fluffy stuff. I mean, we do some of that fun stuff. We have happy hours virtual and show and tell and whatever. But the biggest thing that has made this possible for us as we've scaled up has been the way we measure performance and the way we structure meetings and reviews. So the culture of performance is based on quarterly setting an achievement of OKRs, objectives and key results, and KPIs. And those 2 factors are what we evaluate everyone's performance on. We have weekly check-ins everyone completes online, weekly one-on-ones everyone has with their manager based on those check-ins and how they're doing with their OKRs and KPIs. Here's why that matters so much in a remote business. Doesn't matter how big or small it is. You can't see somebody. You don't know if their butt is in a seat. You don't know if they're typing on the keyboard. Now, in a work environment where you see them, that can actually be deceiving because you think because they're there, they're actually being productive. That's not always true. But
they might be binge watching Netflix and you just don't know it.
That's right. And in a remote environment, they surely could be. So what you have to get comfortable with is, I don't care what they do. I don't care how much they work. I don't care if they're wearing pants. I care that they're performing. They're achieving their objectives based on the key results. They're hitting their KPIs. All their key performance indicators are aligned. And if that's the case, then I don't care if somebody works 5 or 50 hours because they're doing their job. And that's been critical to scaling a remote business.
That's great feedback. I think that consistency of the check-in. We do care if they wear pants in a work from work environment, so that is required here. So Let me ask you one more question, because you're very much in I'll say the financial tech space, and I think right now, and maybe it's Elon with what you're seeing him do at Twitter, which is, hey, you're coming back. He's taking away some perks, higher productivity with less people. Do you think that is a shift that is going to maybe spread throughout tech, and then do you see that spreading to other cultures also?
Yes, it's not new. When businesses get squeezed, it's as old as time.
Yeah.
You get more done with less people. Everybody has to work harder, and perks go away. And that's just the modern equivalent of it is what we're seeing. And I think there's a pretty high degree of probability that there's going to be some kind of recession in 2023 or 2024. How deep it is, how prolonged it is, how soft or hard the landing is based on what the Fed is doing. All those things are going to impact businesses. Their companies are trying to conserve cash. They are trying to extend runway if they're burning. They're trying to be more capital efficient. Money's been cheap for a long time.
Yeah.
Capital's been cheap. It's not cheap anymore. And that means that businesses have to operate differently. So I think we're going to continue to see that. I also think it's cyclical. And like all cycles, we will at some point revert back into a cycle where money is cheaper and flowing more freely, and perks start increasing again. And I think it's just part of business. And really, for us in the wealth tech space or the advisory space, I think one of the things that we have to remember is, regardless of all the noise or what other businesses are doing, this is a people business more than anything. It comes down to trust, relationships, emotional connection. And so I think you have to build that into your margins. Like, if you start squeezing your people and they start becoming, I don't know, a little dejected, concerned, feeling that pinch, it's going to reflect onto your clients. It's going to affect your business. So I think for us, even in wealth tech, all that has a trickle down effect through the advisors to the clients. And so in our industry, we just can't lose our humanity. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things that I focused on in our new vision. We actually wrote a new vision for this year that takes us through 2026. And it is, we can build a great business without losing our humanity. And some of those decisions, you mentioned Elon and big businesses, they're so far removed, these leaders, from their people, they can make these decisions based on a spreadsheet without taking the human component into consideration. And that's something I just don't think we can afford to do, especially in this business.
That's great advice. And, the flip side to all of this, recession, all the talk around it, we just had our big kickoff event, I don't know, a month or so ago. And one of the things that I said is, in the 20-ish years now, 20 plus years I've been in this industry, like, as an advisor, the tailwinds that we have behind us right now are the best that I've seen in almost any time during those 20 years. So it's always interesting talking to friends who ask how the recession impacts our business. And I'm like, actually, it's kind of really good, because people get nervous. It's a lot easier to think your plan's working well when the market's going straight up, there's no volatility, and everything looks great. But, our advisors are having 2022 was a record year, and 2023 looks like it's going to be an even better year, because people do get worried and they want advice. So these are the times when I think great advisors really shine, and having tools that can help you communicate, stay in front of people. And more than anything, I think just I think what you all have helped our advisors do is give their clients some peace of mind. I don't know if compliance likes me saying that, but just that they don't have to worry, and they're hearing from their advisor, and everything's going to be okay. And that's a big part of what we do as advisors.
Massive.
Okay, let me ask you some quick lightning round questions. These can be kind of short answers. Just I ask everyone at the end of those, but we'll start with COVID and some of the changes that created. But as you look back over the past few years, is there one maybe new lesson that you learned that you think you'll carry forward for the rest of your career or life?
Yes, and it surprised me. I have to spend time every week in the dirt. And here's what I mean by that. Grounding activities.
Hmm.
I'm in tech. I'm on a computer. But I've started, and this is all since COVID, I started building. I built pergolas, I built a garden house, I started gardening. I'm about to start making wine this summer. Um, I've found that to be mentally healthy, I need to balance my work with a different kind of work
Hmm.
that is more, um, you could say, old fashioned. And if I get my hands dirty, I'm a lot happier, and it helps me balance out. Even during the day, if I get really stressed, I go take a hike, 30 minutes in the woods. I come back, I'm good again. So that's been a huge lesson for me, and it's totally changed my life.
That's cool. That's a great one. Haven't heard anything like that, but I think a lot of people realize the more time we spend in nature, probably the better it is for our health, mental, physical, all of that. So, okay. Second question: what was the one thing that you've done to graduate from being a good leader to a great leader?
Well, the question is certainly nice because it assumes I'm a great leader. I don't think I should ever acknowledge being a great leader, or else I might get too comfortable. I do my best to be the best. I try to be the best leader I can, but I don't think I'm a great leader yet. I will say, though, one of the things that helped me become a much better leader is shifting from having all of the answers to asking all of the questions and being a lot more curious. And I used to, when people would bring me problems, I was the guy to solve them. Now I'm the one who tries to really learn and help people solve them by asking the right questions and bringing them to the conclusions on their own. That's made me a much better leader, and I think more effective.
And it's one thing I've seen and probably focused on is, to me the definition of a leader is how you develop other people, and you don't develop other people real well by always giving them the answer. Making them come up with the answer is a great tool there. So, okay, third question: is there something you're doing this year to drive your own personal growth that you're excited about?
Yeah, very big. First of all, I hired a coach for the first time, so I do have a performance coach. That's been big. And the second thing is time blocking. So I now have limited my meetings to 5 per day. None of my meetings are longer than 50 minutes. And I do that to leave at least 10 minutes in between meetings for the little things. So having a coach, having those 5 meetings max per day, and I don't start meetings till at least 11. Now, I made an exception for this podcast because this is actually part of my thinking time, my morning time, my focus work.
Yep.
But I don't have other types of meetings until after 11. So those have been big changes that allowed me to do my best work in the morning when I'm freshest, and also helping me improve my own performance with some accountability from a coach that I haven't had in the past.
That's cool. Okay, fourth question. What is the one book you've recommended most? I didn't even mention this at the beginning, but you wrote a great book last year called Blend Out that people should pick up, especially financial advisors who are in marketing. So it can't be Blend Out. But outside of that book, is there one book that you've recommended the most to other leaders?
Yeah, there's a book called The Great CEO Within, and I forget the author's name. Matt Mokery, The Great CEO Within. This book, it's little, but I've got probably more annotations and pages bent over so I can reference them again than any other book. It's full of, I would say, tactical and strategic guidance for how to build a company. Snappy Kraken would not be where it is today if I hadn't applied a bunch of things in that book.
That's really cool. It's a great one. I have not heard that one, so go pick it up. Okay, final question. Best piece of advice you've ever received?
So this is a podcast for business. I would normally give a business piece of advice. The problem is the way the question is worded. It's the best piece of advice I've ever received.
Does not have to be business advice. Correct.
And the best piece of advice I've ever received was not business advice. But it's something that has become part of my daily routine, and I believe is one of the most important things I do. And that is read the Bible daily. And, a lot of people who are listening to this, they may not be religious, they may not value the Bible, but for me, the timeless wisdom in it has shaped everything about my life, and it's one of the most important things I do.
It's great advice, great way to start your day. So, Robert, it's been a pleasure to have you on the show. What would you share with people just how they can stay connected to you, and learn more about Snappy Kraken, and follow along with you in your journey?
Yeah, absolutely. A few ways. I'm probably most active engaging with strangers on Twitter. So at Robert Sofia, my last name is spelled Sofia, by the way. You can contact me through snappykraken.com, or you can attend the Jolt conference. Every year we host a big marketing conference for advisors. This year it's May 3 through 5 in Las Vegas. I'll be there in person. And other than that, you can, call me, email me, however you can find me.
Sounds great. I appreciate you again being on here. For everyone who listens, especially my advisor friends. So much wisdom for other advisors. Make sure that you share this episode with someone that you know would benefit from it. Again, Robert, appreciate the time, and thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.